What's up, everybody? It's Dominic D'Angelo of Studio1Sports.com, and I'm here with Mr. Robert Karpelis, WD Creative _ish. Robert, happy Wednesday to you. Big news, Ted Turner passing away. How you doing, man? Oh, you're muted, I believe, Robert.
Oh, sorry. I was trying to mute your side because the music was
the music's coming on?
insane. Anyway, I'm doing well. We'll say hi to the folks joining us in the chat. Maddie, Mr. Marijuana says, dude, R.I.P. Ted, up there with Hogan, brother. Up? E says, what's up? I'm so excited that RVD returns live tonight. It will do better numbers than AEW unless AEW hired Marcus D'Angelo. They don't got that kind of money.
No.
Matt Buswell says, Ted's dead. Well, this means Vince did indeed win, unfortunately. But he had some unkind words to say about billionaires. Scrolling down a little further, Big Boss says, if it wasn't for Ted, there would be no Monday Night Wars. In a number of ways, that is true, both good and bad. So that is I'm sure something we're gonna chat about here. Warner Breeze said, hello, RNI. If only there was some exciting music to lighten the mood. There isn't, because where Dom is right now, there's loud ass music in the background. So we are spared from having to be. Also, it'd be rude to say to play some. I'm so excited upon the passing of Ted Turner.
Well, it's a different wrestling product, so we could potentially play it.
I think Ted Turner. The interesting thing about Ted Turner is he sort of created this prototype, this blueprint that we've seen exist across wrestling, where someone is a lifelong fan of pro wrestling, and when they get into a position of power and they get into a position of authority, and they can use that capital that they have to further the wrestling industry. So Ted Turner grew up a wrestling fan, as Vince McMahon would say, and ultimately decided to leverage TBS and the Superstation, first with Georgia Championship Wrestling, and then that brief blip of time with WWF programming, and ultimately acquiring what became WCW. We've seen it with Dixie Carter. We've seen it with Tony Khan. We've seen it with a number of other entities and luminaries throughout the year, some of whom we're just not going to mention on this show, but Dom knows who I'm talking about, and that's all that matters. It's the nice thing of when you have a childhood passion, when you have something that you love and enjoy, finding a way to connect with it and finding a way to bring it to the masses is kind of lovely. And, there's a lot that can be said about Ted Turner, good and bad. As a wrestling fan, I have some conflicting thoughts on Ted Turner, since I was a WWF kid growing up. And I didn't love the idea that wrestling had to be not only tribalistic, but this all or nothing war. That if I wanted to enjoy WCW programming, I could only do it to spite WWF programming. And it's what created the current ecosystem that you have. It's why TNA found it so hard to thrive in their infancy, because there's people who, we want to get tribal. Anyone coming after WWE or coming after the thing that I love. The AEW issues in the world where people want to say, well, you can't be a fan of both. You absolutely can be a fan of both. You can love all kinds of wrestling. The strategy employed by Eric Bischoff with Ted Turner was, well, we have to win, and the only way to win is to put your competition out of business, which works in some regard, not for wrestling, because it was the only way you got to watch wrestling. It was either WWF, WCW, or ECW. We didn't have the internet. Maybe you had VHS tapes. Maybe you were getting the creepy VHS tapes from the back of the magazines, where you had to, like, we're talking about this somewhere, like you had to write a grown man, and they're going to send a VHS to your parents' home. What a world we all lived in. But that was the nature of the Monday Night Wars. And while there was a perverse enjoyment factor to it, we're reminded of it this week with all the talk about the business of wrestling and individuals being forced to take salary cuts, that these backdoor back office conversations wind up ultimately becoming the narrative that a lot of us get hooked on. It's the bedrock of this show. It's what, I'm not going to speak for Dom, but for me, it's what kept me a fan past the age where kids may have grown out of being wrestling fans. It was, well, I understand what I'm watching is a form of entertainment, but all this other stuff that's going on, all the dirt sheet stuff, all the what have you. And when I was in, middle school and in high school, and you started having the internet, boy, that became really, really interesting and compelling. And it became its own sort of narrative story. Ted built an insane media empire that unfortunately was not sustainable. And there's a number of different publications. I just finished reading. I highly recommend Tinderbox, which is a great book about the creation of HBO. And it gets into the absorption into Time Warner and AOL Time Warner, and it concludes with the Warner Discovery piece. But it really is fascinating to see where that ultimately played out. For a lot of wrestling fans, we know him because of the billionaire Ted wrestling war rooms.
Yeah, I will say if it wasn't probably for Ted Turner, I would not be as big of a wrestling fan just because I was more WCW and NWO and all that stuff. So, and when I think that's a great point you make up too when it comes to, that dichotomy of tribalism because, yeah, indirectly, like, yeah, you're trying to take that other business out of business. And that was a big narrative for that. At the same time, too, I kind of look at it in a vibe of like, competition and capitalism, and I think that was almost inevitable to happen for the industry a lot of ways if there was another one to go out because like you are competing, it is a competitor thing, and I think the edginess of that time period was kind of necessary for the wrestling industry to grow and blow up into the Attitude Era and the NWO and Sting and all that stuff. So I think there's a little bit of give and take with all of that too.
Well, I think
So
that there was always going to be competition, and I think the idea was in a capitalist marketplace. The idea is the thing that the audience wants to watch, they're going to watch. But the problem is if you prohibit someone from being able to watch both and make that decision and ultimately vote with their wallet, that's what winds up destroying the overall ecosystem. So it's like if you watched American Idol and The Voice and they put them on against one another, and you were someone who liked singing shows, you want there to be more than one singing show. You want there to be more than one flavor of ice cream. And it was ultimately a situation where WWF and WCW could not coexist because one was designed to try to put the other one out of business. And it hurt a lot of wrestlers because, like you're seeing now, you want someone to have the ability to say, you know what, I don't like being here. I'm going to go over to the other side, potentially make more money, potentially have better creative opportunities. But when you don't have that step two, that other thing that's floating over there, you're all of a sudden in this situation of I'm beholden to what this monopoly offers me, or I got to go cobble things together on the indies.
yeah, I think that's a fair argument to make too for it for sure. Yeah, I don't know. A lot of people are asking this in the chat here, Robert. Does Ted go into the WWE Hall of Fame?
No,
You don't think so?
I don't think he goes. I think part of it is obviously the reason why Ted did not go into the Hall of Fame while he was alive was his mental decline over the years. And so it wasn't like he was going to be able to show up and give a speech and be there in person. I think that WWE has somewhat begrudgingly they've acknowledged Ted Turner's contribution to the evolution of wrestling. He's you go back and watch the Monday Night Wars documentaries. They do kind of, they don't give him his flowers, but they do at least say, hey, he was kind of part of this. But Vince always loves to point out I'm in the wrestling business. Well, I'm in the entertainment business. Like, all right, I get it. I love that philosophy. There's a lot of people who want to see a company that's just in the wrestling business. Ted going into the Hall of Fame, it's possible. Vern went into the Hall of Fame, and that was something people never thought they would see. If you put Ted in as a legacy inductee, it wouldn't offend me. I don't think it's selling a ticket. I don't think it's making the Hall of Fame more or less valid than when they let in promoters and on-screen figures.
Yeah, I think he deserves to go in. I mean, like, I don't know if they will or not, but I think just from the industry standpoint, I mean, he's a big figure for pro wrestling and what happened. So I think he deserves to go in. Before we move on, I do want to ask, do you think, while you were talking in the opening segment, I was thinking about, do you think Vince really looked at Ted greatly, like from almost like a jealousy standpoint, or a certain aspect of, Ted is successful, CNN, Turner Network Television. It's almost kind of what Vince really wanted to do in that lane, and he didn't have that at that point in time, and he wasn't necessarily a billionaire at that juncture either. So how much do you think that kind of elevated things for Vince to kind of be motivated to ultimately do what he did with the Attitude Era and stuff?
Yeah, I think Vince and Ted were very much kindred spirits in that they were outsiders who were never going to be fully accepted by the mainstream. Ted Turner was always kind of seen as the hayseed guy, and they were all going to make fun of him, and you're going to make fun of the accent, and you're going to make fun of his background. And the man built an undeniable media empire, yet there's still people who point and laugh that this is the Beverly Hillbillies situation. That was always the Vince side of things. Ted Turner reached a point in time where he's like, I got enough money, I'm going to go buy old movies because I like old movies, and I'm going to go create a network for it. I'm going to go make the Superstation start at 6:05. Why? Because I know in a world before you had TV Guide, if I put on a show and I don't like it and I want to see what else is on, hey, something new is starting 5 minutes after. I'm going to go stick with this. Hey, I like baseball. Let's put the Braves on the air. It's kind of wild to think about what he accomplished. When I was at the University of Florida, the greatest university on planet Earth, or any potential other planets that may be out there, one of my
University.
University of Florida, greatest university on planet Earth. One of my professors was guest professor Larry Woods, who was absolutely incredible. He was there the minute CNN started. He was literally in the booth when they turned the satellite on. Ted was in the room for that, and Larry was an on-screen guy, and he said Ted Turner just had a passion for the things that he was involved in, and that became infectious. It was, I'm going to create what I want to create because I know what I like and what I think other people are going to like, and saw a need and saw an opportunity in the world. So I think that was really, really helpful.
Here's a good follow-up. What do you think WWE will do for the passing of Ted, and in turn, will AEW do something tonight? I'd have to think so, correct?
Oh, AEW is absolutely going to do something tonight because you got Shivani.
Yeah. All right. So, be interested to see what WWE does if they do anything.
I think WWE may mention something. It's a little weird if they mention it on USA Network, but we'll see.
Yeah, well, we will see. All right, Robert. I think it is time to get a little bit excited. But do you get excited in the bedroom, Robert?
I'm sorry. Are we going from the passing of Ted Turner to a Blue Chew? Even I was like,
"We got it. It's hey, capitalism, man."
You do you, Dom. I'm just going to sit back and watch.
I will do it then. All right, let me pull up the Blue Chew head real quick. I thought I had it out, but I didn't. All right, here we go, fellas, and oh my God, I'm screwing it up already. Come on.
Nope, that was the wrong word to use. You know what? Dom's having some trouble getting it up. But guys, if you're a lady or fellow or that person that sends you is ready for better sex, then you should be too. That's where Blue Chew comes in. They've been on a mission for years to get you bricked up, build your confidence, and help you actually perform in the bedroom. Their new arousal-boosting formula, Blue Chew Gold, is helping millions of men have better sex in 2026. And we've got a special deal for our listeners right now. When you buy 2 months of Blue Chew Gold, you get that third month for free with promo code RUMOR. That's promo code RUMOR. Visit BlueChew.com for more details and important safety information. And we thank Blue Chew for sponsoring this episode of Rumor and Innuendo.
That's right. Robert, you mentioned it.
Oh, God, what did I mention?
All the WWE pay cuts going on with people in the business. Brian Alvarez, friend of the show, gave a little bit of details regarding that. He said on Wrestling Observer Radio, these people have been asked to restructure their deals, are upper mid-cardish talents, maybe even higher than that. According to him, too, he said stars like Roman Reigns, Cody Rhodes did not have to engage in such negotiations. We speculated a little bit yesterday on that. So these people signed pretty big money deals for quite a while ago. They've been making that money for quite a while. Now they're not where they were. Things are very different now when you sign this deal. You're not doing 4 house shows a week. You're on the road 1 day a week. You're wrestling maybe twice a month. We want to pay you less for what you're doing because you're doing less now. Alvarez also pointed out the tough reality for wrestlers who say no. If they don't agree to new terms, WWE is willing to let them go. They're going to pay you 6 figures, but they're going to determine the value. You're working 1 day a week and you're working 2 matches a month. And this is what we're going to pay you right now. And if you don't want it, that's fine. You can talk to Tony Khan, or you can go to New Japan, or you can do whatever. I mean, that's the way they're going to be going forward. So, Robert, what do you think of this new structure that's kind of probably expected from TKO, right?
Yeah, wrestling is the only form of entertainment that's structured in this way, where you have a litany of performers who are independent contractors, but they're contracted to work essentially 365 days a year. They're working a 52-week televised schedule where they may be used a lot or a little, and there's no variation around that. When it was Vince owned, and then when it was publicly owned by WWE, they had a certain profit structure. They had certain understandings and expectations for Wall Street. Under the TKO umbrella, you look at what UFC does versus what WWE does. It is not apples to apples. And it's a very tough thing to explain to your investors why one is treated different than the other versus the earning potential that comes out of them. TKO through WWE over monetizing everything that they have, every square inch of the ring, every commercial break, every turnbuckle, whatever it may be, is in order to maximize profits so that TKO looks good to its investors. So you look at it and go, well, the company must be making a lot of money. Why are they cutting people's salaries? That's the nature of the entertainment industry. And to their point, wrestlers, it was always a traveling carnival. Much like a carnival, the carny folk made their money because they went town to town and they split profits. When you're not running house shows, you're bringing in less revenue. They're working less, and they're not. And then you're looking at it going, why are you getting paid the same amount of money for doing less work? It's also tough because you are not the master of your own domain. You are not able to control how much or how little you're used. So you do have to try to maximize those minutes, but you are at the mercy of the creative leadership. And people can choose to take that and say, I'm going to accept this in this new reality and make it work. Or to the point of the report, you can go try to, ply your wares elsewhere. AEW, what's always baffled me is they're private equity. They're a private organization run by Tony Khan. And I've always been concerned about how long that gravy train, for lack of a better term, is going to run, because it's how much Tony is bringing in versus how much Tony is willing to lose and how he chooses to pay his talent. He does not have anybody else to answer to. That's a very different ecosystem. Almost every other wrestling promotion on the planet has essentially failed because of the economics that go into making wrestling sustainable. WCW was successful under Turner because of those guaranteed contracts. But with guaranteed contracts, those talents did not have to work house shows. So if you are Hulk Hogan or Kevin Nash or Dom's cat, you run into a situation of, I work 2 days a month, I work 30 days a month, I make the same amount of money basically. What's the incentive to work more? So you need someone a little hungry, but not so hungry that they're they're looking elsewhere and they're not going to be content. It's an odd balance act, and I think that TKO is just re-level setting what the world is going to look like. It's a story. It's not a huge story, and the talent is still going to be fairly compensated. And if at any point in time they're not fairly compensated and they want to go elsewhere, some of them may have a landing spot. And that's where AEW has been the most valuable, and why a lot of these guys did get very lucrative contracts a few years ago.
Yeah, and that whole structure does change, especially when you're in that corporate publicly shared company environment, and you're looking at the numbers, and you're not looking necessarily at the talents and the people. And to your point, Robert, wrestling is such a subjective business where it's not like who's the best athlete or anything like that when you're playing on the football field or hockey rink or whatever. It's depending on what that person in charge thinks of you. And so you don't have control as a wrestler when with a lot of this stuff. And that can go for a publicly traded company, or that can go for a privately owned company like AEW. So yeah, it's the unfortunate nature of this business.
It is, but also if you go into pro wrestling or sports entertainment, you know those are the rules of the road. You don't have that kind of control. Your idea is create your own brand, maximize those opportunities, and if it works out, great. If it doesn't work out, you go and try to make a name for yourself elsewhere. It was the Colt Cabana model when he was doing indie dates and created his wrestling podcast as a way to promote his shows. It became a juggernaut that created an entire ecosystem of podcasts. Xavier Woods from the Austin Creed doing the up, down, down stuff. There's always been that notion of a side hustle. To me, the best example for the longest time was Rick Martel. Rick Martel was a guy who decided, I'm going to take the money I get, I'm going to invest in real estate, I'm going to go be a realtor, I'm going to go have a second career that I can lean on. And he has been thriving ever since. Why he hasn't had to do a number of returns later in life. Your co-host, Mr. Rob Van Dam, has been really smart about marketing himself the entirety of his career. You understand his brand, you understand what he's going to advertise, how he's going to advertise, and how he can ultimately leverage his name and likeness to an audience that's willing to pay for it.
Absolutely. And he doesn't budge on it too, which is great about it too. Like the fascinating thing about Rob early on, like he was a wrestling fan, but like learning from the Sheik, learning from Sabu, and how like somebody like the Sheik particularly too, about learning how to protect your money and protect yourself moving forward. Rob's always kind of instilled that in his business philosophy. So yeah, definitely. And great point about Rick Martel too. I actually didn't know that about Rick. So
yeah, no, Rick Martel was one of those guys who was like, I'm not going to be beholden to this world. I'm going to go, kind of do my own thing. It was why WWE was always so hesitant when guys would go off to Hollywood, because, well, if they have bargaining power and they have leverage, we have no control over them.
Right.
So they want guys that are completely and utterly at their mercy.
Right. And another guy too is Crowbar, who during WCW went for physical therapy school and is a physical therapist. So he loves wrestling, but he's not beholden to it either. It's not his main job to worry about. So, and also Matt Cardona too, as well, obviously too, doing what he does.
I mean, here's the reality, and this is something that I've always said to talent, is when you are at one of these companies, whether it's AEW, WWE, TNA, any level, you have the opportunity, you have the ability to learn a variety of different skills while you were there. You're around the trainers, you're around the production people, the camera people. You have a real great chance to hone a number of different skills. The wrestlers that wanted to go work in the front office, when I was there, Tommy Dreamer was working in the front office. So the one-time Simon Dean, Mike Bucci, was working in the front office, and now is very successful in his banking career. So you do have that kind of corporate exposure. They're more than willing to sit and talk with you and help you learn. It's why I was always baffled by the guys that didn't want to pursue commentary. Yes, like for a guy like Corey Graves, it's unfortunate he wasn't able to continue to wrestle, but he's now developing these skills where he can be employable in broadcasting for 30, 40 years if he so decided to do so. Might not necessarily always be at WWE, but you got a chance in a variety of these places.
Heck, we talked about Miz yesterday and him being able to market himself outside of the wrestling bubble with American Gladiators or anything else. I mean, once his career is done in the ring, I'm sure there's more for Miz outside of it for sure. So,
wrestling, it's kind of like I've talked to pro athletes over the years, and it's like your lifespan in the NFL is, you're lucky if you get 5-6 years out of it. You spend your entire life training.
Not for long.
Exactly. NFL is not for long. Saw it in hockey and the NHL too. So It's the reality of the industries that you're going into is you only have so much time to make an impact. The nice thing and the strange thing is wrestlers have been better taken care of in the last 20, 25 years. So you have guys in their 40s and like Rey Mysterio's case, their 50s, where they're still able to deliver at a very high level. We go back and look at the ages of the wrestlers when we were growing up as kids, and you're like, there are some street miles on the Big Boss Man.
No doubt about it, right? Jeez.
But we've got Dynamite tonight.
Yes.
Couple of quick, not to go through the whole show, but it will be a world title match.
Yes. TNT champion Kevin Knight.
It's Darby Allin versus the TNT champion Kevin Knight. I'm guessing MJF is going to destroy both of these guys and beat everyone up, and we'll see. But Kevin Knight just gets a world title opportunity here. Since he beat MJF. Juice Robinson's looking to get a shot at the Continental Champion, Jon Moxley. And the way to do that is in an eliminator match.
My favorite match. I wonder if Ted Turner liked the eliminator matches too.
I'm sure he was a huge fan. I'm sure he was a big fan of the Double Jeopardy match, which we're going to have Dax Harwood versus Orange Cassidy for reasons. And then Mina Shirakawa and Harley Cameron will take on Hikaru Shida and Chris Statlander. Is Willow no longer with Harley?
I have no idea.
Is this one of those where someone's going to yell, "You got to watch Collision"?
That might be it.
You got to watch us, as we will be here tomorrow, as we are every Monday through Friday at noon Eastern on a plethora of platforms, including the WW Creative _ISH X account, the @Dominic D'Angelo X account, the @SE Scoops X account, and on YouTube on Podcast Heat and Studio One Sports. So on behalf of the man broadcasting to you live from inside the world's loudest bar, Dominic D'Angelo, I'm Robert Karpelis. Best of luck in your future endeavors.
What was that? I can't hear you. Huh?